Joining us now, a guy whose picture is very familiar to so many Americans. He advised presidents. He ran for the presidency himself. He continues to comment on political matters. As he wrote in his book years ago, he's been right from the beginning. It's Pat Buchanan. Pat, welcome back to America's Forum.
Good to talk to you, J.D. and Miranda.
Hi.
Now, I got to ask you this. Do you really think when push comes to shove, Pat, the Democrats will really boycott this select committee?
I think they'd have to think long and hard before they did something like that, because on this one I agree with Peter King. To say that you will not participate in a committee of Congress suggests, A, that you don't trust the objectivity of your colleagues in the House. Secondly, and you simply will not work with them anymore. So I think that message sent out loud and clear would be very damaging to the Democratic Party, and the suggestion would indeed be the administration has got something to hide, and these folks are sabotaging the committee.
Wouldn't you say it's already damaging, though?
Oh, I really believe that the revelation of that email last week by the fellow Rhodes over there at the NSC, I mean, there was not only a cover-up of what happened in Benghazi, but there was a cover-up of the cover-up, it appears. So I think this is deeply damaging to the Democratic Party, and it's deeply damaging to the administration and the White House, because it's quite clear they simply tried to deceive the American people about what had happened in Benghazi and to deceive the people who were investigating what happened.
Pat, you've been through presidential campaigns. You know that politics really dominates any policy question. But the Democrats are simply saying, oh, no, the reason these hearings are being held is to subpoena Hillary Clinton and embarrass her ahead of a potential race for the presidency. How should Republicans respond to that charge? Or do you think there'll be a cacophony or an amen corner in the Washington press corps just putting forth that idea on behalf of the Democrats?
Well, you're touching on something very important here, J.D. I was, as I tell folks, I was on two of the biggest train wrecks in American political history, Iran-Contra and Watergate. I was in the White House for both of them. But one reason the Democrats succeeded in Watergate is because they controlled the committees, they controlled the press in Washington, D.C., they controlled the bureaucracy below the top level. They had all the folks working with and for them. There's no doubt that the national media right now, the major media in Washington, D.C., acts as really the front four of the Democratic Party and the Obama administration. It does the blocking, it does the tackling, it does the hard work for the Obama administration against the Republican Party and against congressional investigations, whereas during Watergate, the media were collaborators and were leading the charge.
And so with that agenda-setting function and that boosterism, if you will, that's something that even though it's been seemingly the eternal lament of conservatives and Republicans, it's a reality that we have to confront. Now, Pat, on the other side of things, Republicans say the White House and State Department worked overtime to cover this up because the presidential election was, 6 weeks away? Back on September 11th, 2012, and they did not want anything embarrassing for Obama. Given the proclivities of a left-leaning press corps, will that message still be driven home during these hearings?
You know, I'm beginning to think, to a degree, J.D., that the media are, they're getting over the love affair. I think and many in the media feel, especially when that Ben Rhodes that memo came out or the email came out, they said, wait, I mean, it's one thing for us to be sympathetic to the Obama administration, but it now appears, we were deliberately deceived and lied to and misled and made fools out of, and now we've got egg all over our face, and it looks like the folks at Fox News who are really pushing this have something of a case. So I think that the president should not expect, and the White House should not expect the kind of all-out support that it was getting from the big media, say, in 2009 and 2010.
What impact, if any, though, do you think this could have on midterm elections?
I don't think it's going to have a great impact on midterm elections, but I do agree with J.D.'s earlier observation that this is potentially very, very damaging to Hillary Rodham Clinton. I mean, people have asked a very relevant question. Exactly what did you accomplish, Mrs. Clinton, as Secretary of State? And the answer has been pretty much, well, you know, she just was a good representative of our country abroad and was well-liked, etc. But now the greatest significant action of the Hillary Rodham Clinton tenure at State appears to be the Benghazi massacre of the American ambassador and those three security folks, and the cover-up and the subsequent cover-up of that right on her watch. And her folks knew all about what was going on, and the fact that she's saying that she was somehow above and beyond all this, I don't think it's gonna sit that well, especially if the focus, they tie it directly to her. But I think that's coming in 2015 and 2016.
Pat, on the other side of the aisle, as we engage in a little conservative introspection at the way that Speaker John Boehner has run the House and run the House Republican Conference, the GOP in retrospect seem to be very relaxed. I know you have committees of jurisdiction, Darrell Issa, government reform and oversight, etc., doing some of the hearings, but why was there a reticence to set up a select committee? And do you believe that, what reason for John Boehner being so relaxed on this vital matter of Benghazi until finally, for all intents and purposes, goaded into naming the select committee?
Well, I do agree the Speaker seems to have been dragged kicking and screaming into doing the job here. I don't know what it is, J.D. You might know better than I, but the House, I mean, first, I hate to be critical, but they don't seem to be terribly effective in these investigations and getting to the conclusion of them, whether it's the IRS or Benghazi. And I don't know where the lack of drive and energy, because this is a responsibility and duty, and especially with regard to Benghazi. I mean, we got an American ambassador murdered and 3 people killed. Remember the beginnings of Watergate, what was that about? A bunch of characters, without Nixon's knowledge, went into the Democratic National Committee and wiretapped the wrong person, and they were going in to fix it. Now, that is more comedy than it is a grave matter like a dead American ambassador.
Pat, I need to turn our attention to Republican politics in 2016, and it's time for confessions of a former presidential candidate. Who has caught your eye for the upcoming election?
There are about 30 of them that have caught my eye, J.D.
Well, let me ask you about 3 of them. Obviously, Jeb Bush, it seems, initially I thought it was a George Romney moment, that whole thing about illegal immigration being an act of love, but I think that's walled off any other establishment guys from getting a corner on that market. So you've got Jeb on one side, you've got Ted Cruz trying to model himself as the Reagan-esque Republican, and Rand Paul, a libertarian Republican. Of those 3, what do you think happens, or would you reveal who you would support of those 3?
Well, you know, I'm not going to get involved in the campaign, but I will say this of Jeb Bush. I think that act of love thing, if that's his first response to what is really an invasion of this country and how we deal with it, it suggests maybe he's a very nice man, but it does not suggest that he's going to be the kind of strong, tough president you're going to need if we're going to have the borders of this country defended. So I think he hurt himself with that. But there's no doubt in my mind right now, there are 2 brackets. It's like the 64, what are they? And they go to the Sweet 16 and then the 8. I think, J.D., there are 2 brackets. One is, if you will, the populist conservative outsider bracket. Back in 96, you know, Buchanan was in that and Forbes was in that. And then you get the establishment bracket where Dole was running, and Dole won that, and Dole won the finals. I think the establishment bracket, you had Christie and Jeb Bush. I think Jeb Bush is far and away the front runner to reach the finals in that bracket. In the second bracket, where you've got Cruz and Rand Paul and Santorum if he runs, and Mike Huckabee, incidentally, there's an opening there. I think that one is wide open. I think each of these 4 comes in, I would say Huckabee and Cruz and Rand Paul Each of them starts with a small pair. You've played poker, haven't you, JD, once or twice?
Well, I don't know if I've played that much poker, but I've been through my share of campaigns, Pat, so I know whereof you speak. We'll continue this conversation at another time. Patrick J. Buchanan, he ran for president, he advised presidents, and we appreciate his insight and analysis this morning. Where do you stand? We'd love to hear from you via Twitter. America's Forum is coming right back.